The morning began with a tender hush, as though the entire Victorian village wished to stay wrapped in its dreams for a little longer. Before anyone stirred, a soft blanket of clouds drifted across the pale dawn sky, dimming the first weak rays of sunlight. The world paused in a gentle stillness, and then the earliest raindrops arrived, quiet, delicate, almost shy. They tapped lightly upon old slate rooftops with the softest rhythm, creating a soothing pattern that felt more like a lullaby than a storm. The rain slid down chimneys and wooden window frames, tracing familiar paths carved by years of gentle mornings just like this one. A faint mist rose from the garden soil, carrying the earthy scent of wet leaves and distant flowers, blending into the cool air like a whispered good morning. The empty streets, lined with round cobblestones worn smooth by time, began to shimmer faintly as the water settled into their tiny grooves. Lantern posts glistened with tiny beads of dew, and the soft glow of their fading light reflected in every forming puddle. The village seemed to breathe slowly beneath the rain, as though savouring the quiet moment. Even the breeze moved gently, rustling through lace curtains and stirring the edges of sleeping doormats. Inside each home, the quiet tapping became a soft companion to the stillness of early waking, a reminder that the day did not demand haste. Nothing pushed for attention, nothing insisted on beginning. The rain simply existed, steady, calm, and comforting, filling the morning with a peaceful melody that travelled from rooftop to rooftop, window to window, street to street. It was a moment made only for restfulness, perfect in its quiet simplicity, and tender enough to make the entire village feel gently held by the soft hands of the weather. The rain continued to fall gently, settling into the narrow cobblestone streets with a delicate rhythm that seemed to make the entire village sigh in quiet contentment. Each stone, smoothed by years of careful footsteps, glimmered with a soft silver sheen as the water traced the uneven paths between them. Tiny streams formed naturally along the grooves, winding and weaving like little rivers that carried the secrets of countless mornings past. The street corners caught small pools of water that reflected the dim light of the cloudy sky, mirroring the faint outlines of chimneys and the silhouettes of trees that lined the edges of the village. The puddles trembled slightly whenever a gentle breeze passed by, creating tiny ripples that danced slowly across their surfaces. Footsteps from a lone villager echoed softly on the wet stones, each tap muted by the water yet resonant enough to add a quiet rhythm to the morning melody. The houses that lined the streets seemed calmer in the rain, their brick walls darkened and enriched by the moisture, their windows fogged slightly as if sighing in relief at the cool touch of the weather. A cat, cautious and careful, tiptoed across a small bridge of stones, leaving a trail of tiny wet paw prints behind, which soon disappeared beneath the spreading puddles. Above, the leaves of ancient trees swayed gently, their branches dripping small beads of rain that fell into the street, adding to the shimmering scene below. The village felt wrapped in silver light, each drop of rain catching a hint of softness in the overcast sky. Even the air carried a quiet serenity, thick with the soothing scent of wet earth, moss, and stone, inviting anyone who breathed it to slow down and simply exist. It was a world in gentle motion, yet perfectly still, a place where every puddle and cobblestone whispered comfort and quiet, and where the soft rain seemed to make the village itself sigh with peaceful ease. As the morning deepened, The gentle rain continued to fall, weaving its quiet melody through the cobblestone streets, and slowly the village began to stir. One by one, the small shops opened their doors, their wooden shutters creaking softly as they lifted to welcome the day. The bakery was first, its warm golden light spilling into the misty grey of the street, and the scent of freshly baked bread and buttery pastries drifted out, curling around the corners of the village like a soft, comforting hug. Inside, the baker moved slowly, rolling dough and dusting flour with careful hands, his movements calm and deliberate, as if the rain outside had set a gentle pace for the entire morning. Across the street, the tailor lifted the iron latch of his shop door, revealing rows of finely stitched coats and delicate fabrics that glimmered with tiny drops of rain clinging to the windows. A soft hum escaped his lips as he arranged bolts of cloth, each fold smooth and precise, his world calm and undisturbed by any urgency. Even the little bookshop, tucked between the bakery and the tailor, opened with quiet patience. The pages of its books slightly damp from the lingering mist that crept in at the edges of the door. Villagers began to wander slowly, umbrellas in hand, peeking into windows and exchanging soft greetings with shopkeepers, their voices low and mellow. The rain seemed to settle gently on the village itself, as if it were a quiet companion to each careful movement, each mindful action. There was no rush, no pressing errands demanding attention, only the serene rhythm of a day unfolding slowly, bathed in the muted light and gentle sounds of a calm Victorian morning. Every shop, every door, every softly dripping eave added to the harmonious feeling of ease, wrapping the streets in the comforting sense that, for this morning, nothing hurried and nothing worried, and everything could simply be. By mid-morning, the gentle rain had gathered into a steady, soothing drizzle, painting the village streets with a shimmering layer of silver. Slowly, villagers began to step out, each opening their umbrellas with a soft click that seemed to echo like a delicate chime in the quiet morning. The umbrellas unfolded like flowers greeting the gentle rain, their colourful canopies forming a soft, moving garden along the cobblestones. Deep navy, soft rose, faded green, and muted gold floated overheads, each one a small burst of warmth in the cool, misty air. Children giggled softly as they held tiny umbrellas that bobbed in the rhythm of their steps, and even the older villagers seemed lighter in spirit, their slow walks punctuated by calm smiles. Every footstep was cushioned by the rain, slicked stones, the soft tapping of shoes mixing with the gentle patter of raindrops on the umbrella tops. A pair of neighbours exchanged greetings under the shelter of a particularly large umbrella, their voices low and warm, blending perfectly with the quiet music of the falling rain. Leaves shook gently from the trees overhead, sprinkling tiny droplets that danced across the colourful fabrics like little sparkling notes. The village, normally full of hurried movements and daily tasks, now seemed transformed, wrapped in a serene, almost magical calm. Even the dogs, cautious but curious, trotted along the puddle-lined streets, their noses sniffing the clean, rain-washed air. It was a moment that asked nothing of anyone, a pause where the world seemed soft and safe, and where every umbrella was a gentle bloom of colour, floating peacefully along the quiet lanes. The rain continued its quiet lullaby, filling the village with a sense of calm delight, and every slow, careful movement beneath the umbrellas seemed to dance in perfect harmony with the gentle rhythm of the morning. The rain had settled into a gentle, steady rhythm, and the village seemed to hum quietly in response. Every droplet that fell carried with it a soft, soothing sound, tapping on rooftops, window panes, and the colourful umbrellas drifting through the streets. It was as if the rain itself had become a delicate lullaby, wrapping the village in a melody that invited everyone to slow their hearts and soften their steps. Tiny rivulets trickled along the cobblestones, their soft gurgles blending seamlessly with the distant rustle of wet leaves. Inside the homes, the gentle patter created a warm, comforting presence, like an invisible hand smoothing the edges of a restless morning. Even the birds seemed to recognize the tender rhythm, singing quietly or pausing in their branches, as though they too were listening. The smell of wet earth and moss mixed with faint hints of wood smoke from chimneys, curling lazily through the damp air, adding depth to the peaceful orchestra of sound. Every corner of the village seemed alive with calms. The bakery windows glistened with moisture, the tailor's shutters dripped gently, and the garden paths shimmered with puddles that reflected the soft grey light of the overcast sky. Villagers walked slowly, heads bent beneath umbrellas, their footsteps muted by the rain, slick stones, moving as if they were part of the melody itself. A child paused to press a tiny hand against a puddle, watching the ripples spread outward, fascinated by the quiet, simple magic of the moment. In that serene morning, time felt suspended. There was no hurry, no worry, only the lullaby of raindrops weaving through every street, tree, and home. Each soft tap was a whisper of calm, a reminder that sometimes the simplest sounds, small, steady, and gentle, can carry a peace so deep that it settles into the heart like a warm, invisible blanket. The village moved through the morning with a gentle, unhurried rhythm, as though time itself had paused to match the soft cadence of the falling rain. There were no sudden movements, no pressing tasks demanding attention, only the quiet unfolding of the day, slow and deliberate. Villagers strolled along the wet cobblestones, umbrellas in hand, pausing occasionally to greet neighbours with soft smiles or to linger near the warm glow of shop windows. The bakery's aroma of fresh bread drifted lazily into the streets, mingling with the subtle scent of damp earth and moss, creating a comforting embrace that wrapped the village in warmth and calm. Even the smallest chores seemed to be performed with care. Rather than haste, a tailor folded his fabrics with gentle precision. A gardener brushed raindrops off leaves with a delicate hand, and a young boy shook the water from his boots as he explored the puddles near the fountain. The soft, steady drizzle created a gentle soundtrack for the morning, each drop a reminder that nothing needed to be rushed. Conversations were low and easy, voices barely above whispers, carrying kindness and quiet amusement rather than urgency or worry. Birds flitted carefully from branch to branch, pausing to shake raindrops from their feathers, while cats wandered lazily under shop awnings, indifferent to the wet streets around them. The rain itself seemed patient, falling without interruption, nurturing the streets, the gardens, and the hearts of those who walked beneath it. In every corner of the village, there was a sense of stillness and reassurance, a comforting understanding that mornings like this were meant to be savoured, not hurried. Every step, every breath, every gentle glance out of a window carried the peaceful truth that life, in these moments, required nothing more than to be noticed, appreciated, and simply allowed to exist. The day stretched ahead softly, unpressured, and entirely content to linger in quiet. Rain washed serenity. By the time mid-morning gently gave way to late morning, the rain had settled into a soft, steady rhythm, wrapping the village in a soothing, almost magical calm. Each drop fell with a quiet purpose, pattering softly on rooftops, trickling along gutters, and splashing gently into puddles that shimmered like tiny mirrors along the cobblestone streets. The world felt hushed, as if every corner of the village had agreed to pause, to breathe, and to simply exist in harmony with the rain. Villagers moved slowly, their umbrellas held delicately above them, their footsteps barely disturbing the puddles they passed. Children laughed softly as they kicked tiny ripples across the water, mesmerized by the fleeting circles that spread outward and disappeared, leaving the puddles peaceful once more. The scent of wet stone and moss mingled with the faint aroma of warm bread and roasted coffee from the shops, creating a comforting cloak that seemed to wrap around everyone and everything. Even the wind was gentle, shaking droplets from tree leaves in the softest sighs, adding a subtle, rhythmic accompaniment to the melody of rain. In these quiet moments, the village seemed to glow with a serene contentment. Every dripping eave, every gleaming cobblestone, and every carefully placed step carrying the same message: life can be gentle, and there is beauty in simply being. There were no urgencies, no pressing demands, no distractions, only the steady, reassuring presence of rain, reminding each villager that peace could be found in the smallest details. And as the morning carried on, with the world soft and muted beneath the drizzle, every heart seemed to settle a little more deeply into the comfort of the moment. In the village that morning, surrounded by silver streets and gentle rain, the simplest truth shone quietly sometimes. The world's most profound calm is found in the quiet, repeated beat of each tiny drop,